It was just another cold morning when Emily Carter stopped to help a stranger jumpstart his car. She didn't know his name, didn't ask where he was going, but that simple act of kindness, it would pull her straight into the dark heart of the city's underworld. Because the man she helped wasn't just anyone. He was Victor Morelli, the city's most ruthless mafia boss, and her life was about to change forever. Her rent was already late. The landlord's warning note was taped to her door like a scarlet letter. And if she didn't pay soon, she'd lose the tiny apartment she called home. Her electricity bill had gone unpaid for 2 months, and last night, she'd sat in darkness eating cold noodles from a can. Still, she tried to keep moving forward. That morning, she walked out of the diner where she'd just been turned down again. The manager had looked at her resume and said, "We'll call you if we have an opening." They never called. She sighed and slid into her old, beat-up Honda Civic. The driver's seat was torn, the heater barely worked, and the car always seemed to stall when she needed it most. She turned the key once, nothing. Twice, just a faint click, click, click. Her heart sank. "Please," she muttered under her breath, turning it again. The engine coughed like an old man and died. She hit the steering wheel with the palm of her hand. "Please, not today. Just not today." Her forehead rested on the wheel for a long moment as the reality hit her. No job, no money, and now no car. A lump rose in her throat. She blinked hard, refusing to cry in public. She had done enough crying this week. When she finally lifted her head, she noticed something across the street. A black luxury car, sleek, spotless and expensive, was parked under a flickering streetlight. Its hood was open, and beside it stood a man who looked completely out of place in this part of town. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a long charcoal coat over a crisp suit. His shoes gleamed like mirrors, but it wasn't his clothes that caught Emily's attention. It was his face. Strong jawline, sharp eyes, expressionless yet commanding. He looked like someone who was always in control, someone who didn't belong among the noise and grime of the city streets. For a moment, Emily considered just staying in her car. She didn't know him, and something about his stillness made her uneasy. But then she noticed the faint trail of smoke rising from his engine and the way he clenched his jaw in frustration. Against her better judgment, she stepped out. Her boots crunched against the frosty pavement as she walked toward him, her breath visible in the cold air. "Hey," she called out softly. "Looks like you're having a bad day too." The man turned slowly, and for a brief second, she regretted speaking. His eyes, in a piercing shade of gray, locked onto hers. They were the kind of eyes that seemed to strip you down to your soul. "Battery's dead," he said flatly, his deep voice calm but cold. Emily hesitated, rubbing her hands together to stay warm.
I might have jumper cables in my car."
"If you don't mind a little help from a stranger." The man tilted his head slightly as if the idea of someone helping him was foreign. "You'd help me?" he asked, his tone almost curious. Emily offered a faint smile. "Guess we're both stuck here. Might as well help each other out, right?" For the first time, a tiny flicker of amusement crossed his face. "Most people wouldn't walk up to me like that," he murmured. "Well," Emily shrugged, "most people probably have somewhere better to be." A ghost of a smirk touched his lips as he followed her toward her car. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was heavy, filled with something unspoken. She retrieved the jumper cables and walked back to connect them. The man watched her closely, his eyes scanning every move, every gesture, as if trying to understand why she was helping without asking for anything. When the engines finally roared to life, Emily clapped her hands together. "There we go. You're all set." The man nodded slowly, almost impressed. "You've got skill," he said. "Or maybe I've just had too many bad cars," she replied with a small laugh. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a sleek black business card, handing it to her silently. "Come by this address tomorrow morning," he said in a low tone. "I might have a job for you." Emily blinked, caught off guard. "What kind of job?" He looked straight into her eyes. "Let's just say I like people who don't ask too many questions." And with that, he stepped into his car and drove away, leaving behind only the echo of his engine and a faint scent of expensive cologne. Emily stood there, staring at the card in her trembling hand. It had no logo, no title, just a name, Victor Morelli. She didn't know it yet, but the man she had just helped, was the most feared Mafia boss in the entire city. Emily connected the jumper cables with trembling fingers, her breath fogging in the morning chill. The metal clamps slipped twice before she got them right. She wasn't scared of the man beside her exactly, but there was something about him that made her nervous. His silence wasn't rude. It was heavy, almost commanding, like he was a man used to being obeyed. Victor Morelli stood with his hands in his coat pockets, his gaze fixed on her every move. He didn't say a word, but his eyes followed her like a hawk studying its prey. There was something dangerous about that stillness, something that made even the air between them feel tense. When the final cable clicked into place, the black car's headlights flickered and the engine came alive with a deep rumble. Emily jumped slightly, then smiled in relief. "There you go! You're all set now." For a moment, Victor didn't move. He just stood there, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Then slowly a faint smirk touched his lips, the first trace of emotion she had seen from him. "You're not afraid of talking to strangers?" he asked, his voice low and gravelly. Emily let out a light laugh. "Should I be?" He tilted his head. "Depends on the stranger." His tone was half joking, half serious, and for a second Emily wasn't sure which side he meant. She tried to brush it off, glancing at her car across the street. "Well, I've met worse people than a man with a dead battery." That earned her another faint smile. "You have spirit," Victor said. "Not many people stop to help others these days." "Guess I'm old-fashioned," she replied, zipping up her jacket. "Besides, kindness doesn't cost anything." That line made him pause. For a man who'd seen the darkest sides of humanity, the simplicity of her words hit harder than she knew. No one had spoken to Victor Morelli kindly in years. People feared him, respected him, obeyed him, but kindness, that was something he hadn't felt since he was a boy. Without another word, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a sleek, black card. He held it between two fingers and offered it to her. "Come by this address tomorrow morning," he said evenly. "I might have a job for you." Emily blinked, startled. "A job?" She hesitated before taking the card. The paper was thick, expensive. No name, no title. Just a gold-embossed address printed in small, perfect letters. "What kind of job?" she asked, suspicion creeping into her voice. Victor's gray eyes softened just a fraction. "Let's just say, I like people who don't ask too many questions." Her heart skipped a beat. The way he said it, calm, confident, and yet with an edge, made something in her chest tighten. She wanted to ask more, but the words wouldn't come. Victor stepped closer, his tall frame casting a faint shadow over her. "Think about it," he murmured. "And if you decide to show up, don't be late." Then he got into his car. The engine purred like a predator, and within seconds he was gone, just a flash of black disappearing into the morning fog. Emily stood there for a long moment, staring at the card in her gloved hand. Her instincts screamed no, this was strange, risky, maybe even dangerous. But desperation whispered yes. She needed money, a job, a chance. That night she barely slept. She kept turning the card over and over under the dim light of her apartment. Who was this man? Why her? By morning, curiosity and need had overpowered fear. She found herself standing in front of a towering glass building downtown, the kind of place that screamed power and wealth. Her reflection in the tinted doors looked small, fragile, out of place. The same black car she'd jump-started yesterday was parked by the entrance. Two guards in suits stood by, their eyes sharp, their posture rigid. Then the car door opened. Victor stepped out, looking every bit the powerful man she had imagined, coat flowing, confidence radiating. The guard straightened instantly and nodded in respect. Emily's stomach tightened. They weren't just being polite. They were afraid of him, and that's when it hit her. This was no ordinary man. She hadn't just helped a stranger on the street. She had walked right into the world of Victor Morelli, the city's most feared mafia boss. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, revealing a long corridor lined with glass and steel. Emily's shoes clicked nervously against the polished floor as she stepped out, clutching the strap of her bag like a lifeline. Everything here screamed money. The air smelled faintly of leather and power. At the end of the hall stood two men in black suits. They didn't smile, didn't speak, just opened the tall double doors in front of her. Inside, the room felt like another world. The walls were dark. The windows stretched from floor to ceiling, and the city skyline glittered like a sea of diamonds behind the man sitting at the center of it all. His desk, black marble with gold edges, looked like it belonged in a museum. Every inch of the office reflected control, discipline, and danger. Victor Morelli sat behind that desk, calm and unreadable. When he lifted his eyes, the same gray intensity from the day before pinned her in place. "You helped me yesterday," he said, his voice low and even, filling the room. "And I noticed something rare, kindness without an agenda." He stood up and walked around the desk, each step measured, confident. "That's not something you see often in my world." Emily's pulse quickened. "Your world?" she repeated softly. Victor stopped beside her, close enough for her to catch the faint scent of his cologne, crisp and dark. "I run a business," he said after a pause. "Some call it real estate. Others call it something else." His eyes flicked to hers, sharp as a blade. "Doesn't matter what they call it. What matters is loyalties and trust." Emily swallowed hard. She couldn't tell if he was confessing or testing her. "I need a new personal assistant," he continued, moving back toward his desk. "Someone smart. Someone who doesn't scare easily." She blinked. "Me? Why me?" Victor's lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile, not quite a threat. "Because you're not part of my world," he said simply. "You see things differently. That's what I need." Emily tried to keep her voice steady. "And what exactly would I be assisting you with?" Victor leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. "Scheduling meetings, phone calls, the usual things. You'd have access to my office, my files, my trust." He slid a sleek folder across the desk toward her. "You'll find the offer inside." Her hand shook slightly as she opened it. The salary was 3 times what her last job offered. There was a signing bonus big enough to clear her rent, her bills, and even fix her old car. It was more money than she had ever seen. But something about the simplicity of it felt wrong. "This is a lot," she said carefully. "You don't even know me." Victor's gaze softened just enough to make her heart stutter. "Exactly," he replied. "You're not corrupted by the noise of this city. You still believe in helping people for no reason. That's rare, Ms. Carter." She wanted to ask more, about what kind of business this was, why he really needed someone like her, but every question died on her tongue. His eyes told her one thing clearly: don't dig too deep. He picked up a pen and placed it in front of her. "You don't have to decide now," he said, "but if you're smart, you'll take it before I change my mind." Emily stared at the contract. Her instincts screamed no, walk away, something's not right. But the thought of going back to her dark apartment, of facing another rejection, made her chest ache. She took a deep breath, picked up the pen and signed. Victor watched her closely, the faintest trace of satisfaction crossing his face. "Welcome to the Morelli Group," he said. "You start tomorrow." As Emily turned to leave, she caught her reflection in the glass wall, small, uncertain, standing in the empire of a man who looked like he owned the entire city. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had just crossed a line she didn't even see. And deep down, she knew that decision would change her life forever. The weeks that followed moved like a dream for Emily. Every morning she walked through the towering glass doors of the Morelli Group, feeling a strange mix of pride and unease. The office staff had quickly learned her name and treated her differently. Some respected her, others avoided her. It was as if everyone knew who Victor Morelli really was. Except her, still she did her job well. She was organized, honest, loyal. Victor noticed. He began trusting her with confidential schedules, coded phone calls, and sealed envelopes delivered only by hand. She never asked questions. Maybe she didn't want the answers. At first, she convinced herself he really was in real estate, the kind of shady but harmless business rich men dipped their hands into. But as the weeks went by, the signs became harder to ignore. Every night, black SUVs pulled up to the building. Men in suits entered quietly, carrying briefcases and leaving without them. Sometimes Victor wouldn't come to the office for days, and when he returned, there'd be a new scar on his knuckles or a bruise just under his collar. Still, he always treated her kindly. "You're doing good work, Emily," he would say, handing her coffee in the mornings. "You make chaos feel manageable." She smiled back, though part of her wondered, what kind of chaos was she managing? One night she stayed late to finish paperwork. The office was empty, silent except for the soft hum of city lights outside. She reached for a file to store in Victor's cabinet when something caught her eye, a folder sitting half-hidden behind a stack of ledgers. Labeled in thick black ink, Morelli Family Operations. Her stomach twisted. Family operations? Curiosity tugged at her, stronger than fear. She hesitated, glancing at the door. Then slowly she opened the folder. What she saw made her blood run cold. Photographs. Dozens of them. Men with tattoos standing beside crates filled with weapons. Pictures of dockyards, money bundles, and handwritten notes marking shipments. Names. Some crossed out with red X's. There were ledgers, too. Coded transactions. Fake real estate deals. Offshore accounts. Her trembling fingers turned the pages, each one darker than the last. She wasn't working for a businessman. She was working for a crime boss. The truth slammed into her chest like a hammer. Her breath caught. Her legs went weak. Oh my God. What have I done? She took a step back, heart racing when a low voice cut through the silence behind her. You weren't supposed to see that. Emily froze. The folder slipped from her hands, papers scattering across the floor like fallen leaves. She turned slowly. Victor stood in the doorway, his face unreadable, his eyes cold but calm. Victor, she stammered, her voice trembling. You're a Mafia boss. He didn't move. For a long moment he just stared at her, and then, to her shock, he sighed. I was, he said quietly, for a long time. Emily took a shaky step back. Was? What does that even mean? He walked closer, his tone softer now. Until you showed up. Her confusion deepened. What are you talking about? Victor leaned against the desk, his gaze distant, his voice lower than she'd ever heard it. People like me forget what humanity feels like. You spend years building an empire built on fear and control, and one day you wake up realizing you've become the monster everyone warned you about. He looked at her then, really looked at her. But then you showed up. You didn't ask for anything. You didn't care about power or money. You just helped a stranger. That kind of kindness doesn't belong in my world, Emily. Her heart was pounding. So what, Victor? You expect me to believe you're a changed man because I jump-started your car? He almost smiled, a tired, broken smile. Maybe it sounds foolish, but when you've lived in darkness long enough, even a small light feels blinding. Emily didn't know what to say. Every instinct screamed for her to leave, to run as far as she could. But something in his voice, the sincerity, the weariness, made her hesitate. I don't want to hurt you, Victor said quietly. But now that you know the truth, you're part of this, and whether you like it or not. The words sent a chill through her. She looked at the folder on the floor, then back at him. What happens now? She whispered. Victor took a deep breath, his expression heavy with something almost like regret. Now, he said softly, now I protect you. From my world. Emily's hands trembled at her sides. She didn't know what terrified her more. The truth she'd uncovered, or the fact that despite it all, some part of her still trusted him. The night the chaos unfolded would forever be burned into Emily Carter's memory. She had just settled into bed when Victor's deep, steady voice came through the phone. Pack your things, he said. No greeting, no hesitation, just urgency. Her heart dropped. Victor, what's going on? They're coming for me, he said, his tone calm but edged with finality. And for anyone connected to me. That means you. Before Emily could ask more, she heard the faint echo of sirens in the background. Her body went cold. When she reached Victor's building minutes later, the city lights flashed red and blue. Dozens of black SUVs surrounded the area like wolves closing in on their prey. Inside, Victor stood by his office window, coat draped over one shoulder as if waiting for her. He didn't look scared, just resigned. Victor, you can still walk away, Emily pleaded. We can go somewhere, start over. He turned and pressed a small envelope into her hands. Take this. It's the deed to a house outside the city, and enough cash to make sure you never have to beg for another job again. Emily stared at it, her voice trembling. I don't want your money, Victor. I just want you to stop, please. For the first time, he smiled softly, genuinely. Too late for that, Emily, but it's not too late for you. Then before she could respond, the sound of shattering glass cut through the air like thunder. Bullets ripped through the walls. Victor reacted instantly, grabbing her and pushing her to the ground. The air filled with smoke and screams as his men returned fire. Emily covered her ears, frozen in terror, feeling Victor's weight shield her. He fired back once, twice, then silence. When she dared to open her eyes, all she saw was chaos. His men scattered, the air thick with the smell of gunpowder. And Victor was gone. The police stormed the building minutes later, shouting orders and dragging away wounded men in black suits. But there was no sign of Victor Morelli. No body, no trace. Just his long black coat, torn and blood-stained, lying beside her on the floor. Emily's hands shook as she clutched the envelope he'd given her. She didn't open it until days later, after the city headlines screamed, "Mafia Kingpin Victor Morelli, presumed dead in violent raid." Inside the envelope was more than just the deed and cash. There was a single note written in Victor's bold handwriting. "You helped me when I was just a stranger. I never forgot that. Start over, Emily. Live the life I never could." Tears blurred the words as she folded the letter close to her heart. For the first time in years, she didn't feel fear or uncertainty, just clarity. Months later, she found herself standing by the ocean in a small coastal town. The sun rose golden over the water, and the salty breeze carried a promise of new beginnings. With Victor's note framed on the wall, Emily opened a cozy little cafe by the pier. She named it Second Chances. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm. People from all walks of life came in. Fishermen, tourists, even a few lonely souls who just needed someone to talk to. Emily always greeted them with the same kindness she once offered a stranger with a broken-down car. Every now and then she'd notice a sleek black car parked across the street, its engine idling quietly. No one ever stepped out, but she always felt a familiar presence watching, protective, distant, but still there. She never told anyone. She didn't need to, because deep down Emily knew the truth. Victor Morelli, the city's most ruthless mafia boss, had vanished from the world's eyes. But to her, he had simply traded his crown of crime for one final act of redemption. And somewhere in the shadows, he was still watching over the only woman who had ever shown him kindness. As she locked up the cafe one evening and glanced toward the dark horizon, Emily smiled softly. Sometimes fate works in the strangest ways. Sometimes helping a stranger can change your life forever. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more powerful and inspiring stories. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.